So that little montage is about 2 minutes condensed down of the beginning of the Two Towers, where we see the different stories coming together, intercut together, and this happens in the films. Because if you haven't read the Lord of the Rings books, there are 3 books published, but each book consists of 2 books: book 1, book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5, book 6 in Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return of the King. And other than books 1 and 2, the storylines do not cross in the books. It doesn't go. Chapter 14 is about the chase of Merry and Pippin, and chapter 15 is about Bilbo or Sam and Frodo, and then chapter 16 is back to Theoden. Right? No, it doesn't do that. It's 20 chapters of Frodo and Sam, and then 20 chapters of the rest of the Fellowship. And the film doesn't do that. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the very first thing. Is that lore friendly? Is it a good idea to change the structure of the film, of the book that Tolkien wrote for the film? Or not even as a good idea, but does it match what Tolkien wanted to in the lore that he has there?
So
weird question.
No, I think it's appropriate. I actually think I'll probably right out the gate here for our first couple of them. I might disagree with you a little bit on this. This is intercutting. My opinion is intercutting is the movie equivalent of interlace, which is in fact, it's so old, it's medieval technique whereby different, like the French Arthurian legends, they would interlace stories of each of the knights looking for the Holy Grail, for example, and they would go jump from knight to knight, and then they wouldn't tell the story all as one. They would go jump back and forth. And I like what you showed us there, because you did your little cuts, and I think that reminded me of when I'm reading Two Towers to my children. You are correct that there's a larger separation between Frodo and Sam and a bunch of chapters of them in one quote unquote book in Tolkien, and then the rest of the Fellowship in another book in Tolkien. That's correct. But if you look at the other Fellowship, it actually does interlace. It jumps between. So the Merry and Pippin being carried by the Uruk-hai you jump between the 3 Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli chasing them, and then what happens to Merry and Pippin, so it does do a jumping back and forth. Now it doesn't do it the way a movie does, and that's hence the difference between interlacing, which is a novel version, and intercuts, because the movie like jumps within seconds sometimes of a scene, what's happening, sometimes minutes. And I just find that to be appropriate to a movie. Like, there's a visual medium, and visual media have different techniques.
But that's really our next question. This question is, does it support Tolkien's lore of the Lord of the Rings?
Is it lore friendly to do that? So my answer is going to be yes. And the reason my answer is yes is because I see intercutting as the movie version of interlacing. So if you're going to do, Tolkien interlaces. He does it in long cuts. But he even makes references at certain points to what's happening, like with the sunset before the long darkness, when he tells us that there's something happening. This is the point at which the hobbits were here and the rest of the company was there. Yeah. And so I say it is lore friendly to do that.
I mean, unless by doing it they're changing how characters react because they know things differently, and I don't see how it would be really hard to make it not lore friendly unless they're really changing it. But just the sheer act of intercutting the storylines doesn't make it not lore friendly. So I agree with that. It is a yes for me too. All right. So then let's get to the second question. Is the change necessary for cinema? This might be the easiest question we'll have in the entire 200 episode run of every change in Lord of the Rings. I say, well, yeah, it kind of is necessary, because you can't go off and leave somebody. I mean, even Peter Jackson makes this point. You can't go off and leave somebody alone for 30, 40 minutes and you'll just forget about them. And then your timeline is all shifted. And honestly, that is in Lord of the Rings, when you read it, it's one of the harder things to go back. And when you go to Frodo and Sam, and then you go back to Merry and Pippin, like, or actually it's where you go from Frodo and Sam to the Fellowship. No. You go from the Fellowship to Frodo and Sam, and you're going back. in
You're
time.
all the way back in time
And
at Parth Galen, and so yeah,
the
it's
first time I read that, it was a little tough. So I would say that
mhm.
sometimes it's almost necessary for regular books too. I don't think it's necessary. But again, Tolkien wasn't a professional author. He wrote what he wanted to write the way he wanted to write it.
Well, and I remember when it became in vogue in the 80s, I was reading Tom Clancy novels. So you have Patriot Games and Cardinal of the
Mhm.
Kremlin and Clear and Present Danger. And and I remember him doing the essentially jump cuts in books. Like
How
a
dare you
few,
forget Red Storm Rising?
Red Storm Rising is awesome. I
That was
love
a
Red
good
Storm
one.
Rising.
Yeah.
World War Three, baby. So there's a that's gonna get clipped by someone somewhere. It's gonna be terrible. But luckily, I'm not important enough for anyone to clip that. But he was doing that. He was doing a movie, a cinematic version, even in books. So yeah,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yes. What is
so
T?
big yes. It's
Totally,
totally yes.
totally.
Totally yes. It is necessary for cinema. That brings us to our last question: is how much do you like the change? Um, man, I guess I mean, for me, it's really a 5. Like,
Mhm.
I don't see why I mean, you have to make the change, otherwise you forget about stuff.
Right,
And
I agree. I
well,
really like what they did. I feel like it was
so
just
you're a 5 too.
I am just a continuation of what Tolkien was trying to do himself.
Yeah, yeah. Our averages are a little high. I mean, we've only done 2 episodes now, so your average is going to be
Yeah.
like 4.5.
Wait till
Mine's going to be
we're our
4.
third week in and we've got these we're just setting the bar up a little bit so that we can
We're
knock it
setting us
down.
up. Oh, well, just wait till the next part where we talk about how many poems and songs were cut from the
Oh
Lord of
yeah.
the Rings.